This is Cynthia Sue Larson with realityshifters.com. And actually, just starting the whole talk that way is interesting because what I'm here to talk with you about today is the idea of who are you? If I asked you that question, just like if someone asked me, who are you? I might first say my name like I just did, Cynthia Sue Larson with realityshifters.com. And if I was being interviewed on a TV show, I might add, I'm the best-selling author of this book. It's a book, Quantum Jumps. And I've written other books too. But it's a very situational kind of question. If I think about it more, I would realize that if I was on the UC Berkeley campus or any college campus and someone asked, who are you? I might just say what my major is. I got a physics degree from UC Berkeley. I've got an MBA degree, But these certifications, these titles, these descriptors, they're not really who I am. And it's kind of an interesting thing when you start thinking about it. Who are you really? Because one thing that we learn when we study more about the nature of consciousness, and as we look at the whole idea of consciousness, especially with regard to physics and the nature of reality, we start noticing that the way that we pay attention, how we pay attention, who the observer is, what the observer is looking for, makes a big difference. So this previous old assumption that was very much a fundamental cornerstone of much of science that had to do with the fact, the so-called fact, which is now, as we see, an assumption, that there can be such a thing as an objective observer. It's a ludicrous proposition now. We know that's not true. And we know it from studying things like the double slit experiment, where an observer looking at a slit and actually tracking whether particles go through that particular slit. If they're looking for particles, if they're measuring for particles, that's what they get. They get particles. If they're not, then what happens is they observe a very strange energy-like diffraction pattern on the screen. So this is the reason that I'm mentioning that whole idea of who are we. But I think what's really interesting for our practical daily lives is it's actually good news not to pigeonhole ourselves into some small subset of so-called reality, such as I am a mother, or I'm a wife, or I'm a daughter. These are roles in our social family fabric. Defining ourselves by a career is not much better. One thing that meditators, such as yogi masters, martial arts practitioners, have noticed is that often such people are capable of recognizing different levels of who they are. And this gets them into a state where they're much more one with what they're entangled with, what they're connected to. So, for example, someone who's playing sports, who meditates, can be much more a part of that team. And this is something that you can enjoy in your daily life. So what do I mean by levels of consciousness? This is not quite what you might think of in terms of brain waves, although there are some similarities. And certainly when we look at delta waves, theta waves, alpha, beta, gamma brain waves, then we're noticing a big, huge spectrum, a range of frequencies, from very high to very low to very high. So the more subconscious and unconscious one is, then the lower those hertz are. So down around 8 hertz is that very low level of unconsciousness. Then going up all the way to 30 and 40 hertz. Some people have been measured as high as that. They're getting up into that gamma brainwave state. And so this is very interesting as well. We all go through those different states of consciousness. And when we get to a certain one, some people are keenly aware of moving between states, going from waking, for example, to dreaming. There's an in-between state you can observe yourself going through. Then you can observe the transition going into oneness consciousness as well, and approaching it. So these are ways that you might answer that question of who are you? So if someone asks me who I know to be a yogi master, who are you? I would say awareness. I am awareness. With an understanding that that is the I am consciousness that we all have access to. So These are some interesting ideas, and I want you to think about all of the possibilities that are out there for you. If you're wondering what kind of possibilities, you can take a look at, in the field of psychology, they've got the Myers-Briggs inventory. And what this does is it enables a person to take a test based on just simple questions and come out with some kind of an answer, being categorized into one of 16 different types, breaking things apart in terms of introverted, extroverted, intuitive and sensing, thinking and feeling, judging and perceiving. And so what you end up with is basically a little snapshot showing who you are right now. The truth is, these things can change. So when you ask yourself, who are you? And you can get into that meditative state, such as one that I love, where you start noticing, I'm in a superposition of states. I am many different people right now. And you can get into that daydream ability to recognize that if you need to be extroverted, you can be. Just as people often notice when they're called to greatness in a time when there's an emergency and they need to lift a car off of someone, they have suddenly realized that they've got superhuman strength and courage that they never knew they possessed. So these kind of quantum jumps, if you will, from one way of being to another is a way of moving through these superposition of states. So I'd like you to think about how you can best be every good thing that you can be, how you can be the full possibility of yourself. And until next time, ask my favorite question, how good can it get? This is Cynthia Sue Larson with RealityShifters.com.